I'll be honest, I'm surprised that we're seeing updates for the Black Ops ports here in 2026. Pleasantly surprised, that is, but from both the perspective of reliving the glory days to the actual support for the ports themselves, seeing this kind of love, it's a pleasant surprise to me, especially when all things leading up to this seem to kind of indicate they'd be dropping these and then nothing more beyond that. A kind of, here you go, have fun mentality, but it seems like that's not entirely the case. Today we're taking a look at a bit of new information here for the ports and what you need to know. Drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe for more FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where code Espresso can get 10% off your entire order, but more on that a little later. For now, let's get into it. So this little discussion here today comes from the COD Updates account, that being the official account on socials to basically tell you what's being tracked, what's being fixed, and everything official in a sort of managerial perspective when it comes to problems or other general announcements for the games. They've been a bit more active than you maybe think, considering, well, these are games that are 13 and 15 years old. The first thing, as a bit of a recap over this past weekend, since we didn't get to cover it just yet, is a bit of how matchmaking works within the ports. This kind of tying into a larger issue that we'll talk about in just a second, but obviously one of the big defining technical upgrades of the last half decade plus has been crossplay in Call of Duty, where in the era of console wars, where the hardware dictated what friends you could or could not play with, since Modern Warfare 2019, you haven't had to worry about that. Sure, it's opened up other cans of worms for discussion, but that's not what we're discussing in this one. However, even though it hasn't been all that long in the grand scheme of things, there probably could be some players out there, maybe watching this video, who didn't get to play these games in their prime. Perhaps dating myself and some of you guys out there watching, to which I apologize, but yeah, we're getting old. But we knew that we wouldn't be able to play with our friends on Xbox or PC if you were jumping into these ports. However, one thing that wasn't entirely clear at the launch was, well, what about the platform generations? Because they were selling this on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Both of those basically tethered together. You just chose which version you wanted to download. But we didn't know specifically if we'd be able to play with PlayStation 4 users on PlayStation 5 and vice versa. In theory, it's all PlayStation and you'd perhaps be able to utilize some of those same servers, but it wasn't ever clarified until this weekend. That's when the COD Updates Twitter mentioned PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 players are able to matchmake with one another. There is no cross-platform play with PlayStation 3 or other hardware platforms. Also, Season Pass owners are able to matchmake with non-Season Pass owners in both titles. So that's a big clarification here for how we interact with this for however long we decide we want to play these ports. PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 players are match made together, but those PlayStation 3 servers and everything like that, the true last generation consoles and the original experiences, you won't have that crossover with those types of players, which was definitely something that was nice in theory when we talked about this leading up to these port releases, because that's where you saw a lot of different modding and exploiting and things like that. So you'd think, okay, well, now that we don't have that in the equation, we should be all good to go. It's not exactly the case, and we'll get there in a second, but the other thing that it clarified was that you could end up playing with both non-DLC and DLC owners, something that in the past was something you had the ability to matchmake with, but the difference was that your party could matchmake, but if you didn't have the DLC and it ended up going to one of those matches, you'd get kicked out. It seems like this is going to be just now a less restrictive version of that, where it's not necessarily two separate lanes of you own or you do not own, like how we had seen in prior games like Black Ops 4, all or nothing season pass type of stuff, but it is something you now at least matchmake with those types of players and go from there. But coming back to it, we did mention that it wasn't exactly the case that you got rid of all those exploiters, all those modders, by not playing with PlayStation 3 lobbies, because, well, you've probably seen that there is some exploits going around right now that people are taking advantage of. The one big one here that it seems like is that of the XP exploits that you have within Black Ops 1. If you've seen clips of people at the start of each match just blowing themselves up and then backing out, that's where this is coming into play with. Now, truth be told, I don't pay attention to exploits or modding enough to know exactly how this is happening. From some brief digging on this, it seems like it is something that is from jailbroken PlayStation 4s that are then matchmaking with everybody else, that it becomes something that's a bit more commonplace that you'd come across, as opposed to if PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 were separated. But this was happening in a couple of different game modes and was problematic to the point where, like, many people saw this. But also on the flip side of this, because it was coming from exploits, there were people that were able to completely de-rank players by millions of XP, meaning that they will literally never get out of level 1, which was also a weird thing. I remember this being a thing back in like Modern Warfare 2 with J tags on 360, where you could end up getting into infected lobbies and people would do this to you, de-ranking you. But it seems like this is now part of this port as well, and what people are experiencing in this air quote new experience, but again, it's just the classics brought up to the current hardware. It was mentioned by the COD Updates account that select playlists have been disabled as we investigate reported issues. So for this, it appears that Domination and Demolition were removed from Black Ops 1 in order to combat this. However, I have seen people saying that this is something that is also apparent in Ground War, so like it's not entirely just closed off just yet because they didn't get rid of all of the modes that this was a part of. But it does appear that a fix is on the way, meaning we are going to get some sort of support here for Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. Obviously, this isn't something that's like, hey, we have new content coming or anything like that. This is kind of bare minimum that we should expect when it comes to updates, because in order to make these playable again, that's why they resold these ports. Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely an easy cash grab for Activision and Sony and the business side of things here again, but the product itself was reintroduced on these consoles so that players could play them. This being something that does incredibly interfere with people's play experience, especially if you got D-ranked, and then seeing other people glitch out with XP. That's something they're obviously going to take a look at and try and patch up. Now, what is strange about this is kind of the irony, of course, that you have people playing cross-generation here at this, and that was something that we had all wanted to see, obviously, but that was like the problem point that then led to these bigger issues. But at the same time, it's kind of poetic that we get to relive these sort of exploits again, just because that's kind of what the whole generation post the first 6 to 12 months of their support ended up becoming. But anyways, this means that an update is on the way here to fix these exploits, but there's still other things that we do need to see fixed. There are some other glaring issues between Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1. Black Ops 1, in the same vein as what we have here, is that like the hit registration for snipers is still pre-patch of when they fixed that back in 2011, which, speaking of, not entirely sure why that port seems to be not the most up to date. Like Black Ops 2's patch, while there's still some like matchmaking issues and things like that, that's at least post DSR nerf, which, if I'm not mistaken, was like the most updated fundamental build of the game. But that still needs to be fixed with Black Ops 1. As we mentioned, Black Ops 2 matchmaking still has some issues where the backfill for matches still needs to happen. For players that back out of lobbies, it doesn't refill those matches, even if you are at the beginning of that match. So there's many situations where you're like 3v2 or 2v2 or something like that, that it just seems like it plays much slower, but it's because it's just not filling lobbies up. Ultimately, it seems like we have some support here. Again, basic bare minimum support, but support that makes the game actually playable on the way. It's just a matter of time until that fix comes through. So that's where we're gonna wrap it up. Just want to fill you guys in briefly here on this. Working on a big project upcoming for the channel that I'm excited to share with you guys, but wanted to touch on this in the meantime. But before we wrap everything up, a quick heads up, we have partnered with my friends over at Advanced GG. Again, as we've mentioned, a bit under the radar the last few months, but now going into the summer, ramping that up more and more. Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option where I use it daily as my comparable cup of coffee. Currently drinking that raspberry lemonade. Magic Rainbow Sherbet's also another one that's one of my favorites, but I'd highly recommend, and we actually co-branded that along with a few other items on their site, like a 26-ounce ice shaker. But love this stuff. If you're looking for a replacement for your own cup of coffee, give it a try. If you decide to give it a go, code Espresso and get 10% off your entire order. But no sweat, appreciate you hearing me out on this, and of course, just checking in on the videos here that you made it this far. Now that said, that's what we're gonna call it. Drop your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of the updates coming to Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2's ports? Are you looking forward to it? Are you liking your time so far? Do you think it's just a cash grab? Let me know. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it idle and insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things FPS content. A lot of stuff upcoming I'm excited to share with you guys that I'd love to have in the community for. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name's been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.